2 days later, space near the Council's border worlds began to change. Ships appeared from hyperspace in formations that made no sense to alien observers. They moved in precise patterns, maintaining distances and positions that served no apparent purpose for exploration or trade vessels. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching sensor readings as his battle group dropped out of hyperspace. 3 ships had answered Earth's call within hours: his heavy cruiser and 2 destroyers, the UES Wolverine and UES Thunder Bay. Navigation. Confirm our position, Blake ordered. We are at the edge of Council space, sir, reported Lieutenant Sam Cooper. Our forces are approximately 6 light hours ahead, moving toward the Alterian colonies. Blake nodded. The ships around him looked nothing like the elegant curves and bright colors of Council vessels. Human warships were angular blocks of armor and weapons, painted in dark grays and blacks. They had been built for one purpose, and every line of their design showed it. Communications. Open a channel to Council Command, Blake said. Commander. Amy Rodriguez, his tactical officer, looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving multiple contacts. Council patrol ships are approaching our position. Let them come. They need to see what real warships look like. On the Council patrol vessel Harmony's Light, Captain Nalvin stared at his screens in confusion. The 3 human ships showed energy readings unlike anything in the database. Their hulls bristled with weapon mounts, sensor arrays, and equipment he could not identify. "What are those projections on their hulls?" asked his science officer. Nalvin studied the images. The human ships had strange markings painted on their sides, numbers, symbols, and what looked like small drawings. "I don't know. Perhaps some form of identification. Sir, they're requesting communication. Put them through." Captain Blake's image appeared on the main screen. The human wore a dark uniform covered in patches and insignia. His expression was calm but alert, like a predator studying its territory. "Captain Nalvin," Blake said. "I'm Captain Ryan Blake, commanding the 1st Human Battle Group. We're here to help with your HFY problem." "First Battle Group?" Nalvin repeated. "How many groups do you have?" Blake smiled. "Enough. Where are the enemy forces?" Nalvin sent tactical data to the human ships. "Commander, I must warn you, the HFY have over 400 ships. Your 3 vessels cannot possibly—" "Captain," Blake interrupted, "we're not here to run away. We're here to fight. What's the situation on the ground?" "Ground?" Nalvin was confused. "There is no ground combat. Space battles determine control of systems." "Not anymore," Blake replied. "Rodriguez, start tactical analysis. Cooper, plot intercept courses for the enemy fleet, and someone get me a full scan of their ship designs." On the Council homeworld, Speaker Veltar watched the newcomers with growing concern. The human ships moved through space with aggressive confidence. Their formation patterns suggested they expected to fight multiple enemies at once. "Admiral Morrison," Veltar said as Jake entered the Council chambers, "your ships have arrived." 3 ships, Jake corrected. "The advanced scout force. The main fleet will arrive within the week." "Main fleet?" Ambassador Quindal looked shocked. "How many ships are coming?" "Enough to end this war," Jake replied. Captain Nalvin's voice came through the communication system. "Council Command, the human ships are requesting tactical command of all defensive operations." Several delegates protested at once. The idea of giving military command to an unknown species seemed dangerous. But Speaker Veltar studied the tactical displays showing HFY positions, then looked at Jake Morrison. "Can your people really stop them?" Veltar asked. "We can do better than stop them," Jake replied. "We can make sure they never threaten anyone again." In space, the first contact between human and Kethvar forces was about to begin. War Commander. Thrakan received reports of 3 small ships approaching his outer scouts. 3 ships? Thrakan laughed. "The Council sends 3 tiny vessels against my empire? Destroy them quickly." 7 Kethvar cruisers moved to intercept the human battle group. Each enemy ship was twice the size of the Defiant and carried more weapons than most Council patrol fleets. Their commanders expected an easy victory. They were wrong. "Contact in 30 minutes, Rodriguez reported. "Enemy ships are moving to surround us." "Let them," Blake replied. "What's our tactical assessment?" "Their ships are large, but slow. Heavy. Armor, lots of weapons, but poor maneuverability. They're built to overpower enemies through brute force." Blake studied the enemy formation. The Kethvar ships moved in a simple pattern, spreading out to catch the humans in crossfire. It was a tactic that would work against Council vessels, which would try to avoid combat. "They're thinking like bullies," Blake said. "All offense, no finesse. Rodriguez, prepare attack pattern Delta. Cooper, signal the Wolverine and Thunder. Bay, we're going in." The human ship suddenly accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Captain Nalvin watched from a safe distance, certain he was about to witness the destruction of humanity's tiny force. Instead, he saw something that changed his understanding of space combat forever. The Defiant did not try to avoid the enemy ships. It headed straight for the largest Kethvar cruiser at maximum speed. At the last moment, it rolled to present its armored top toward the enemy and opened fire with every weapon. The Thunder Bay and Wolverine split apart, moving in different directions to attack the enemy flanks. Their weapons created patterns of fire that forced the Kethvar ships to break formation or face destruction. "What are they doing?" Nalvin's tactical officer asked. "Fighting," Nalvin whispered. "They're actually fighting." The first Kethvar ship to die was the cruiser Blood Drinker. The Defiant's attack run punched through its shields and armor, creating explosions that tore the ship apart from inside. Before the wreckage had finished spreading, Blake's ship was already moving toward its next target. War Commander Thrakan watched the tactical display with growing anger. 3 small ships had destroyed one of his cruisers and damaged 2 others. The humans fought with a viciousness that surprised even the Kethvar. "All ships, focus fire on the lead vessel," Thrakan ordered. The remaining 6 cruisers turned their weapons toward the Defiant. Energy beams and projectiles filled space around Blake's ship, but the human vessel moved like it was alive, rolling and turning to avoid the heaviest fire while never stopping its own attacks. "Hull breach on deck 7, reported the damage. Control officer. "Casualties in engineering." "Seal it," Blake ordered. "Rodriguez, target their command ship. I want to send a message." "Sir, their flagship is heavily shielded. Then we'll get closer." The Defiant accelerated directly toward Thrakan's ship. The move was insane by Council standards, but Blake understood something the aliens did not. In war, the aggressive side usually wins. Kethvar weapons hammered the human ship, but Blake kept coming. At point-blank range, the Defiant unleashed everything it had. Shields collapsed, armor melted, and systems exploded throughout the enemy flagship. But Thrakan's ship was built for war. It absorbed the punishment and fired back with weapons that could crack planets. The Defiant's shields failed, and energy beams carved deep wounds in its hull. "Sir, we're taking critical damage," Rodriguez reported. "We need to withdraw." "Not yet," Blake said. "Signal the Thunder Bay. Tell them to execute Boarding Protocol 7. Boarding Protocol? Nalvin's communication officer had been monitoring human transmissions. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, the destroyer Thunder Bay rammed into the side of a HFY cruiser. But instead of exploding, the human ship extended docking clamps and began cutting through the enemy hull. "They're going inside the enemy ship," Nalvin said in amazement. Lieutenant Commander Ben Torres led the first boarding party in galactic history. His Marines cut through HFY hull plating and entered the enemy vessel with weapons ready. The alien crew had never faced invaders inside their own ship. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the HFY cruiser belonged to humanity. War Commander Throkon stared at his tactical display in disbelief. These humans fought like creatures from his worst nightmares. They rammed his ships, boarded them, and turned his own weapons against him. "Commander, orders?" his tactical officer asked. For the first time in his career, Throkon considered retreat. These 3 small ships had destroyed 2 of his cruisers, captured a third, and damaged the rest. If 3 human vessels could do this much harm, what would happen when their main fleet arrived? "Signal the fleet," Throkon ordered. "All ships withdraw to rally point 7. We need to study these humans before we face them again." As the HFY ships retreated, Captain Blake opened communications with Council Command. His ship was damaged but still fighting. "Council Command, this is Captain Blake. First engagement complete. Enemy forces are withdrawing." "Withdrawing?" Speaker Veltar could barely believe it. "They're retreating?" "For now," Blake replied. "But they'll be back with more ships. We need to prepare for the main battle." Jake Morrison smiled as he watched the tactical display. The HFY had just learned their first lesson about humanity. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to make their enemies afraid to fight them again. The captured HFY cruiser hung in space near Helios Station, surrounded by Council repair ships whose crews had never seen battle damage. Major Steve Collins walked through the enemy vessel's corridors, studying the design with professional interest. "These passages are too wide," he told his sergeant. "No cover, no defensive positions. They built this ship assuming they would always be the attackers." "What about the crew quarters, sir?" Sergeant Linda Walsh asked. "Cramped and uncomfortable. They keep their people angry and ready to fight. But they never planned for someone boarding their ship." The Major's report would change how the Council understood their enemies. The HFY were warriors, but they were predictable warriors. They knew only one way to fight: attack until the enemy surrenders or dies. In the Council chambers, Commander Nancy Price stood before the assembled delegates. The human military liaison wore a simple uniform, but her calm manner made the alien representatives nervous. "The boarding action was successful," she reported. "We captured the cruiser with minimal casualties. The enemy crew surrendered once. They realized resistance was useless." "Surrendered?" Ambassador Quindal seemed confused. "The report said they fought to the death." "They fought until dying became pointless," Nancy corrected. "That's an important distinction. The HFY are brave, but they're not stupid. Once we controlled their ship, continued fighting would accomplish nothing." Speaker Veltar studied the tactical recordings for the 10th time. The human ships moved in ways that violated every principle of safe space travel. They rammed enemy vessels, fired at point-blank range, and put their crews in danger to achieve victory. "Commander Price," Veltar said, "your people fight very differently than we expected." "How did you expect us to fight?" Nancy asked. "We assumed you would use the same tactics as Council forces. Long-range engagements, minimal casualties, Withdrawal. When outgunned, Nancy smiled. Speaker Veltar, has the Council ever won a war using those tactics? We have never fought a war, Veltar admitted. Then maybe it's time to try something new. The damaged Defiant limped toward Helios Station for repairs. Captain Blake watched his crew work to fix the ship's wounds. 23 crew members had died in the battle, and twice that number were injured. In Council terms, it was a disaster. In human terms, it was an acceptable price for victory. Captain, Rodriguez called from her station. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. Something big is coming. Blake checked his screens. The energy patterns were too large for Kethvar's ships, and they were coming from the direction of Earth. How many contacts? I count 47 ships so far, sir. More are still arriving. Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through the communication system. Captain Blake, this is Admiral Carter aboard the UES Washington. What's your status? Operational but damaged, Blake replied. We engaged 7 enemy cruisers and sent them running. 1 captured, 2 destroyed, 4 damaged. Outstanding work. Prepare to receive reinforcements. We brought some friends. The human main fleet emerged from hyperspace in a formation that made the Council delegates gasp. The carrier Washington was larger than most Council stations. The battleship New York bristled with more weapons than entire patrol fleets. Dozens of cruisers, destroyers, and support ships moved in perfect coordination. But it was not just the size of the fleet that impressed the aliens. It was the way the ships moved. Every vessel knew its place, its role, and its mission. The humans had turned space combat into a deadly art form. War Commander Thraken received reports of the human fleet with growing concern. His scouts counted. Over 200 ships, including vessel types the Kethvar had never encountered. The humans had fighters, small attack craft that operated from larger ships. They had specialized vessels for different missions, assault ships, command ships, and support vessels that could repair battle damage in space. How did such a small species build such a fleet? Thraken demanded. His intelligence officer checked the latest reports. Our analysis suggests they have been preparing for large-scale warfare for decades. Every ship is designed for combat. Every crew member is trained for battle. Impossible. The Council reports say humans have been in space for less than a century. Yes, Commander, but they spent that entire century preparing for war. Captain Jennifer Murphy commanded the science vessel UES Discovery, but her mission had nothing to do with research. She was adapting alien technology for military use, something that horrified the Council species. The Altarian mining lasers can be modified into effective beam weapons, she reported to Admiral Carter. Their industrial fabricators could produce ammunition for our kinetic weapons, and their shield technology is actually superior to ours in some ways. What's the catch? Carter asked. The Council considers military applications of civilian technology to be morally wrong. They have laws against it. Carter smiled grimly. Commander Murphy, we're not bound by Council laws. Do what you need to do. Within hours, Discovery's engineering teams were converting peaceful Council technology into weapons of war. Mining lasers became ship-killer beams. Cargo haulers became ammunition ships. Even medical vessels were modified to repair battle damage. The transformation shocked the Council delegates. Commander Dan Phillips, leading the fighter squadrons from the Washington, tried to explain human thinking to Captain Nalvin. You see a mining laser, you think about extracting resources, Phillips said. We see a mining laser, we think about how much damage it could do to enemy armor. But that's not its intended purpose, Nalvin protested. In war, everything has a military purpose. Food becomes a weapon if you deny it to enemies. Transportation becomes a weapon if you use it to move troops. Even medical supplies become weapons if they keep your soldiers fighting. Nalven was beginning to understand why the HFY were retreating. These humans did not just fight battles. They turned everything around them into instruments of war. The first joint training exercise between human and council forces was a disaster. The alien crews could not adapt to human tactics, and the human commanders grew frustrated with council timidity. "They won't fire until they're absolutely certain of their targets," complained Lieutenant Sarah Thompson, intelligence officer aboard, the Defiant. "By the time they're certain, the enemy has moved to a new position. They're afraid of causing unnecessary damage," Rodriguez replied. "They don't understand that in war, some damage is always necessary." The breakthrough came when Major Collins suggested dividing responsibilities. Council forces would handle logistics, intelligence, and support operations. Humans would do the actual fighting. "You're good at the things that keep civilizations running," Collins told the mixed crew. "We're good at the things that end wars. Let's use both skills." The arrangement worked better than anyone expected. Council species provided detailed intelligence about HFY movements, supplied the human fleet with resources, and handled the complex logistics of managing hundreds of ships across multiple star systems. Humans focused on what they did best: destroying enemy forces. Admiral Carter reviewed the strategic situation from her command center aboard the Washington. The HFY were regrouping near their forward bases, preparing for a major assault on the Council Core worlds. Intelligence suggested they were bringing their entire fleet, over 800 ships. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "Council Command is requesting our defensive strategy." "Tell them we don't have a defensive strategy," Carter replied. "Ma'am, defense is for people who want to survive battles. We're going to win this war. Signal all ships to prepare for offensive operations." The order went out across the human fleet: abandon defensive positions and prepare to attack. The council delegates panicked when they heard the plan. Speaker: "Veltar contacted Admiral Carter directly." "Admiral, you cannot attack the main HFY fleet," Veltar protested. "They outnumber you 4-1. It would be suicide." "Speaker Veltar," Carter replied calmly, "has the council ever won a war? By playing defense? We have never fought a war." "Exactly. Trust us to do what we do best." War Commander Throkon was planning his final assault when his scouts reported impossible news. The human fleet was moving toward HFY positions at maximum speed. "They're attacking?" Throkon could not believe it. "The entire human fleet is advancing on our main battle group?" "Yes, Commander. They appear to be abandoning all defensive positions." Throkon studied the tactical display. The humans were either completely insane or completely confident. Given what he had seen of their fighting abilities, he suspected it was confidence. "Signal the fleet," Throkon ordered. "All ships prepare for battle. The humans want a fight. Let's give them one they'll never forget." The stage was set for the largest space battle in galactic history. 800 HFY warships against 200 human vessels, with the fate of the Council hanging in the balance. But Admiral Carter had learned something important from the first engagement. The HFY were powerful, but they were predictable. They would mass their forces and attack in formation, expecting to overwhelm human positions through sheer numbers. They had never faced an enemy that preferred to be outnumbered. In human military history, the desperate battles were often the most decisive ones. The war was about to reach its climax, and humanity was ready to teach the galaxy what total warfare really meant. The Battle of Kepler's Edge began at dawn, ship time. 800 HFY vessels arranged themselves in the traditional formation their empire had used for centuries, a massive wall of firepower designed to crush enemies through overwhelming force. War Commander Thraken stood on his flagship's bridge, confident that sheer numbers would finally defeat these troublesome humans. Admiral Carter watched the enemy formation from the Washington's command center and smiled. The HFY were doing exactly what she had hoped they would do. All ships, execute Pattern Omega, she ordered. The human fleet suddenly broke apart like an explosion in reverse. Ships scattered in dozens of directions, moving at maximum speed toward predetermined positions. To the HFY observers, it looked like panic. To the human commanders, it was the opening move of the most complex military operation in their species' history. Captain Blake, commanding the repaired Defiant, led a strike group of 20 ships toward the enemy's left flank. Commander Dan Phillips launched his fighter squadrons from the Washington, sending 300 small attack craft racing ahead of the main fleet. Captain Helen Brooks, commanding the experimental dreadnought New York, moved her massive ship toward the center of the enemy formation. "They're scattering," reported Thraken's tactical officer. "Should we pursue individual groups?" "No," Thraken replied. "Maintain formation. When they regroup for their attack, we'll destroy them all at once." But the humans were not regrouping. They were executing a battle plan that the HFY had never seen before, coordinated attacks from multiple directions, designed to create chaos in the enemy formation. Phillips' fighters reached the HFY fleet first. The small craft were too fast for the enemy's heavy weapons and too numerous to track individually. They swarmed over the massive ships like angry insects, targeting weapon mounts, sensor arrays, and communication equipment. "What are those tiny ships doing?" demanded Thraken. "They're attacking our defensive systems," his officer replied. "Weapons, sensors, shields, everything that protects the fleet." Before Thraken could respond, Blake's strike group hit the enemy flank. 20 human ships concentrated their fire on 50 HFY vessels, creating a local advantage that the aliens had not expected. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, focusing their attacks to destroy enemy vessels one at a time rather than spreading damage across the entire enemy line. The HFY tried to adjust their formation, but their ships were too large and slow to react quickly. By the time they turned to face Blake's attack, half of their left flank was burning wreckage. "Commander, we're receiving reports from across the fleet," Thraken's communication officer said. "Human attack groups are hitting us from 6 different directions." Thraken studied the tactical display in growing horror. The scattered human ships had not fled in panic. They had positioned themselves to attack his formation from every possible angle. Everywhere he looked, HFY ships were under assault by smaller but faster human forces. "Signal all ships," Thraken ordered. "Break formation and engage individual enemy groups." It was exactly the wrong decision. The moment the HFY ships broke their defensive formation, Admiral Carter sprung, the final part of her trap. The dreadnought New York, which had been approaching slowly to draw enemy attention, suddenly accelerated to ramming speed. Captain Brooks had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in the battle, a direct assault on the enemy flagship. The IID New York was the largest ship in the human fleet, armed with experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat. "All hands prepare for impact," Brooks announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to show these aliens what a real warship can do." The New York smashed into the center of the HFY formation like a hammer hitting glass. Enemy ships scattered to avoid collision, breaking their remaining coordination and leaving individual vessels to face human attack groups alone. But Brooks was not finished. The New York's experimental weapons were designed for close-range combat against multiple targets. Energy beams reached out in all directions, cutting through enemy hulls like knives through paper. Missile launchers fired in continuous salvos, overwhelming enemy defenses with sheer volume of fire. "This is impossible," Thraken said, watching his fleet dissolve into chaos around him. "How can 200 ships defeat 800? His tactical officer checked the battle reports. "Commander, they're not fighting like 200 ships. They're fighting like one ship with 200 parts. Every move is coordinated. Every attack supports the others." The truth was even more impressive than the Kethvar realized. Admiral Carter was not just commanding individual ships. She was orchestrating a battle that spanned light hours of space, coordinating hundreds of vessels, and thousands of crew members in real-time human communication systems allowed instant coordination between ships. Human training emphasized initiative and independent action within overall strategy. Most importantly, human commanders understood something the Kethvar did not. In war, flexibility defeats strength. Major Collins, leading Marine boarding parties, from the captured Kethvar cruiser, had his own mission in the Great Battle. His job was to capture enemy ships intact, adding to the human fleet's strength while reducing enemy numbers. "Target the ship with the damaged engines," Collins told his pilot. "They can't run, so they'll have to surrender or die." The boarding action was swift and brutal. Kethvar warriors were brave and skilled, but they had never faced humans in close combat. Collins' Marines moved through the enemy ship like a force of nature, clearing compartments and securing objectives with ruthless efficiency. "Ship secured," Collins reported. "Enemy crew has surrendered, requesting technical teams to assess the vessel." It was the 15th ship his Marines had captured during the battle. War Commander Thraken watched his mighty fleet crumble around him. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were burning hulks. His carefully planned formation had become a scattered collection of individual vessels, each fighting for its own survival. "Commander, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships," his communication officer reported. "Surrender?" Thraken roared. "The Kethvar do not surrender." "Sir, the alternative is complete destruction. The humans are offering terms." Thraken looked at the tactical display. Of his 800 ships, fewer than 300 were still combat-ready. The humans had lost perhaps 30 vessels, and most of those were only damaged, not destroyed. "What terms?" he asked quietly. Admiral Carter's voice came through the communication system. "War Commander Thraken, this is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Human Fleet. You are defeated. Order your remaining ships to stand down, and we will accept their surrender." "And if I refuse?" Thraken asked. "Then we will destroy every remaining Kethvar vessel. Your choice." Thraken had spent his entire life preparing for war. He had conquered worlds and defeated enemies across half the galaxy. But he had never faced an enemy like humanity. These creatures fought with a combination of intelligence, aggression, and coordination that his species could not match. They turned his own strength against him, used his formations to trap his ships, and defeated superior numbers through superior tactics. "All Kethvar vessels," Thraken said slowly, "stand down. Cease all offensive operations. Prepare to receive. Surrender terms." The great battle was over. In 6 hours, the human fleet had destroyed or captured over 500 Kethvar ships. The mighty empire that had threatened to conquer the galaxy was broken. But Admiral Carter was not finished with the war. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Prepare for Phase 2 operations. We're going to make sure the HFY Empire never threatens anyone again. Captain Blake, his ship damaged but still fighting, received his new orders with grim satisfaction. The battle at Kepler's Edge was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, teaching the galaxy that some enemies could never be allowed to rebuild. The HFY had started this war by attacking peaceful worlds. Humanity would finish it by making sure the HFY could never start another one. In the council chambers, Speaker Veltar watched the battle reports with amazement and growing fear. The humans had won a victory that seemed impossible, but their methods were unlike anything the council had ever seen. They destroyed over half the enemy fleet, Ambassador Quindal said in wonder. How is that possible? They fight like predators, Veltar replied quietly. They hunt in packs, coordinate their attacks, and show no mercy to enemies. Is that bad? Quindal asked. Veltar studied the tactical recordings of human ships ramming enemy vessels, boarding parties capturing ships in bloody combat, and fighters swarming over massive battleships like insects attacking giants. I don't know, he admitted, but I'm glad they're on our side. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler's Edge, the galaxy was a different place. Admiral Carter stood in the rebuilt council chambers, addressing delegates from species that had never known military victory. The human fleet had not simply defeated the HFY Empire. They had dismantled it piece by piece. Phase 2 operations are complete, Carter reported. We have secured all former HFY military installations. Their shipyards are under council control. Their weapons stockpiles have been destroyed or redistributed to defensive forces. Speaker Veltar still seemed shocked by the scope of human military operations. Admiral, your report mentions attacks on 17 different systems simultaneously. How did you coordinate such complex operations? Training and preparation, Carter replied simply. Humanity has been planning for galactic warfare since we first learned about other species. Every scenario we encountered had been studied and practiced. War Commander Thrakon, now a prisoner aboard the human facility on Kepler Station, had been forced to watch his empire crumble. The humans did not simply defeat HFY forces. They systematically eliminated every source of military power the Empire possessed. Captain Blake, promoted to Admiral after the Great Battle, commanded the occupation forces in former HFY space. His mission was not conquest, but transformation, turning a warrior empire into something that could coexist with peaceful neighbors. The problem, Blake explained to his staff, is that the HFY only know one way to live, through conquest and domination. We need to teach them alternatives. Major Collins, now commanding the HFY rehabilitation program, had spent months studying the enemy culture. They respect strength above everything else, he reported. The only way to change their society is to prove that cooperation makes them stronger than conquest. The solution was radical even by human standards. Instead of simply occupying HFY worlds, the humans began integrating former enemy soldiers into Council defense forces. HFY warriors who proved trustworthy were given new purposes, protecting the very worlds they had once threatened. You want us to guard Council colonies? Asked Sub-Commander Vextar, a former HFY officer. I want you to understand what you were trying to destroy, Collins replied. These worlds are full of families, children, artists, scientists, people who create instead of conquering. Your job is to make sure they stay safe. The psychological impact was profound. HFY warriors who had seen only enemies began to see people worth protecting. Their warrior instincts remained, but now those instincts served peace instead of war. Admiral Carter's greatest challenge was not military but political. The Council species struggled to understand human methods, especially the systematic destruction of enemy capabilities. You eliminated their entire military-industrial complex, Ambassador Quindal said during one heated debate. Was that really necessary? Yes, Carter replied bluntly. The HFY built their entire society around making war. Leaving their weapons factories intact would be like leaving a loaded gun in a nursery. But what about their economy? Their people need work. Then we'll give them new work, Carter said. Building schools instead of warships. Growing food instead of manufacturing weapons. The HFY are skilled and intelligent. They just need to learn peaceful applications for their abilities. The transformation was not easy. Some HFY groups refused to accept defeat and launched guerrilla attacks against human forces. These holdouts learned quickly that humans were even more dangerous when fighting irregular warfare. Lieutenant Sarah Thompson, now heading intelligence operations, tracked down resistance cells with methodical precision. Her teams used techniques that shocked Council observers: infiltration, psychological warfare, and targeted elimination of enemy leadership. They're fighting like the HFY used to, Thompson explained. Small groups, hit-and-run tactics, terror attacks against civilians. So we fight back the same way, except we're better at it. The resistance collapsed within 6 months. The surviving HFY warriors faced a choice: join the new order or face complete destruction. Most chose to join. Commander Dan Phillips established the Galactic Defense Academy on Luna, Earth's moon. The academy trained mixed crews of humans and aliens in coordinated military operations. For the first time in galactic history, different species learned to fight together. The key, Phillips taught his students, is understanding each species' strengths. Alterian pilots have excellent reflexes for fighter combat. Kristen engineers can repair damaged ships faster than any human crew. Draknari soldiers are naturally aggressive in ground combat. What about humans? Asked a young Zephyrian cadet. Phillips smiled. Humans specialize in making all the pieces work together. We coordinate, we plan, and when planning fails, we adapt. The first graduation ceremony was attended by representatives from every council species. Admiral Blake, now commanding integrated fleets throughout council space, spoke to the mixed group of graduates. You are the future of galactic defense, he told them. Not human fleets protecting alien worlds, but combined forces protecting all our worlds together. War Commander Thraken requested a private meeting with Admiral Carter 6 months after his surrender. The former enemy leader had spent his imprisonment studying human military history and philosophy. I need to understand something, Thraken said. Your species could have conquered the galaxy. Your fleets are stronger than any force in known space. Why did you stop with defeating the HFY Empire? Carter considered the question carefully. Because conquest was never our goal. We didn't come to rule the galaxy. We came to protect it. But protection requires constant vigilance. Enemies will always exist. Then we'll always be ready to fight them, Carter replied. But we won't become them. The moment we start conquering worlds for their own good, we become the threat we were supposed to stop. Thraken studied the human admiral with something approaching respect. Your species understands war better than the HFY ever did. We fought to prove our strength. You fight to preserve your values. That's the difference between warriors and soldiers, Carter said. Warriors fight for glory. Soldiers fight for causes worth defending. The final ceremony took place 1 year after the first HFY attack. The council chambers were filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, including former Kethvar colonies that had chosen to join the galactic community. Speaker Veltar stood before the assembly, addressing the transformed galaxy. 1 year ago, we faced extinction. Today, we are stronger than ever before. Not because we learned to fight, but because we learned to fight together. Admiral Carter received formal appointment as Supreme Commander of Council Defense Forces, but she insisted on one condition. The position would rotate between species every 5 years. Humanity would not become the galaxy's permanent rulers. Military. Power must serve civilian authority, she explained to the assembled delegates. The moment soldiers start making political decisions, democracy dies. Jake Morrison, promoted to ambassador after his role in summoning human aid, watched the ceremony with satisfaction. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors. "What's next for the human fleet?" asked Speaker Veltar. "Exploration," Jake replied. "There are other galaxies out there, other species we haven't met yet. Some of them might be peaceful, others might be threats. Either way, we'll be ready." Captain Blake, now Admiral Blake, commanding the exploration fleet, prepared for humanity's next mission. The UES Unity, his new flagship, represented the future, a ship crewed by humans and aliens working together, armed for war but hoping for peace. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving signals from the Andromeda Galaxy. They appear to be distress calls." Blake smiled grimly. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, other species might be facing the same choice. The Council had faced: submit to conquerors or find protectors willing to fight for freedom. "Set course for Andromeda," Blake ordered. "Let's see who needs our help." The human fleet departed Council space 6 months later, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by their presence. Integrated defense forces patrolled the trade routes. Mixed crews operated ships designed by multiple species working together. Former enemies served alongside former victims, united by the understanding that peace required strength. War Commander Throkan, now serving as a tactical instructor at the Defense Academy, watched the human ships disappear into hyperspace. His former enemies had become something he had never expected. Teachers who showed his people a better way to use their warrior nature. "Where do you think they're going?" asked his assistant, a young Kethvar who had never known conquest. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the control room of Olympus Station, watching Europa's icy surface through the massive windows. The research station orbited Jupiter's moon in quiet peace. Scientists worked in labs below, studying alien bacteria found in Europa's hidden ocean. Nobody expected what was coming. The communication panel beeped 3 times. Jake turned from the window and walked to his desk. A red light flashed on the screen. Emergency transmission from Earth. His stomach dropped. Red lights meant bad news. "Computer. Open secure channel," Jake said. Admiral Ben Hayes appeared on the screen. His face looked tired and worried. Behind him, Jake could see the busy command center on Luna Station. Officers moved quickly between computer stations. "Jake, we have a situation," Admiral Hayes said. "How many people do you have on Olympus right now?" 230 civilians, 40 security staff. Why? Because we just received a message from space. Not from any human ship or station, from aliens. Jake felt his blood go cold. Humanity had been looking for alien life for centuries. They found bacteria and simple plants on distant worlds. But intelligent aliens who could send messages? That was different. That was dangerous. What kind of message? Admiral Hayes pressed a button. The screen changed. Jake saw a strange creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black. When it spoke, a computer translated its words into English. "People of Earth," the alien said. "We are the hegemony. We rule this part of space. You have been building colonies and sending ships without our permission. This ends now." The alien paused. Its face showed no emotion. "You will stop all travel beyond your home system. You will give us your advanced technology. You will mine rare metals and send them to us. You have 30 of your days to agree. If you refuse, we will destroy your worlds." The message ended. Admiral Hayes came back on the screen. "They sent this to every human colony and station," he said. "Earth, Mars, the Belt colonies, everyone got the same message." Jake sat down hard in his chair. "How many ships do they have?" "We don't know yet. Our long-range sensors picked up massive energy readings at the edge of the system 3 hours ago. Then nothing. They're out there, waiting." "What does Earth Command say?" Admiral Hayes smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "President Rodriguez is calling an emergency meeting with the Colonial Senate, but I think we both know what the answer will be." Jake nodded. Humans did not bow to anyone. It was not in their nature. "What do you need from me?" "Start evacuating non-essential personnel. Keep your science team and anyone who knows how to fight. We're going to need every station and every person. Ben, we're a research station. We have mining lasers and some old security ships. We can't fight alien warships." "You'd be surprised what humans can do when they're angry," Admiral Hayes said. "I'm sending you classified files, things Earth has been building in secret. We've been preparing for this day longer than you know." After Admiral Hayes ended the call, Jake sat alone in his office. 30 days, that was not much time. He pressed the station-wide communication button. "All personnel, report to the main meeting hall in 1 hour. Emergency briefing." Jake spent the next hour reading the classified files Admiral Hayes had sent. His eyes grew wider with each page. Earth had not been idle during the peaceful years. While everyone thought the government was building trade ships and colony vessels, they were also building weapons. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt had been working for decades. Secret weapons research on Mars had produced new types of guns and shields. Even civilian mining equipment had been designed to work as weapons if needed. But the biggest surprise was the ships themselves. Earth had over 200 military vessels hidden throughout the solar system. Not the old patrol boats everyone knew about. Real warships with heavy armor and powerful guns. The meeting hall was packed when Jake arrived. Scientists, engineers, miners, security guards. All of them looked worried. Some looked scared. Jake understood how they felt. "I'm going to tell you the truth," Jake said. "Earth received a message from aliens today. They want us to surrender. They want us to become their slaves." The room erupted in voices. People shouted questions. Someone screamed. Jake held up his hand for quiet. "Earth's answer is no. We will fight, but that means this station is now in danger. Anyone who wants to leave can take the next transport to Mars. No shame in that. But anyone who stays will be helping defend human space." Dr. Lisa Carter stood up. She was the station's head scientist, a small woman with short black hair, but her voice was strong when she spoke. "Commander, what do we know about these aliens? Their technology, their weapons?" "Not much yet. Admiral Hayes is analyzing their message for clues. But he's sending us new equipment, military-grade sensors and communication gear. Our job will be to watch for alien ships and report what we see." An engineer named Pete raised his hand. "What about weapons? This station wasn't built to fight." Jake smiled. Admiral Hayes says our mining lasers can be modified. Those rockbreaker charges we use, they'll work just fine against alien ships, if we get close enough. Over the next week, things changed fast on Olympus Station. Transport ships arrived and left, taking home scientists who chose to leave. But more people stayed than Jake expected. 60 civilians remained, along with all 40 security staff. Military supplies arrived daily. New computer systems replaced the old research equipment. The mining lasers got upgraded with military targeting systems. Most important, they installed new shields around the station. Dr. Carter worked day and night studying the alien message. She found interesting things in the computer code they used. The aliens think we're primitive, she told Jake. Look at how they structured their message. It's like an adult talking to a child. They expect us to be afraid and surrender immediately. Are we primitive compared to them? In some ways, yes. Their ships can cross space faster than ours. Their energy weapons are more advanced. But Jake, they made mistakes in their message. Small ones. That tells me they're not perfect. On day 15, the aliens sent another message. This time they showed pictures of their fleet. Hundreds of ships of different designs. Some looked like metal spears. Others were round like balls. The biggest ones were larger than Earth's space stations. But Jake noticed something else. The ships flew in perfect straight lines. They stayed in exact formation. Every movement looked planned and rigid. They fight like they're following a rule book, he told Dr. Carter. That could be our advantage, she replied. Humans are good at changing plans when things go wrong. If these aliens always fight the same way, we can surprise them. On day 20, Admiral Hayes called another meeting. The alien fleet is moving, he said. Our deep space sensors detected them 12 hours ago. 350 ships coming toward Earth. They'll arrive in 8 days. What about our fleet? Jake asked. Getting ready. Earth's shipyards have been working around the clock. We'll have about 120 ships when they arrive. The numbers were not good. More than 3 alien ships for every human ship. But Admiral Hayes did not look defeated. Remember, they think we're going to surrender. They think we're weak. Let them keep thinking that until it's too late. Jake spent the remaining days preparing his people. They practiced emergency drills. They learned to use the new military equipment. Most important, they prepared mentally for what was coming. On the 29th day, Jake stood again at the control room windows. Europa looked the same as always, peaceful and quiet. But tomorrow, alien ships would enter human space. The war would begin. He thought about Earth, about all the human colonies and stations spread across the solar system. Millions of people who had never seen war. Children who did not know what fear meant. They were all counting on people like him to keep them safe. Jake picked up the communication device and contacted all human stations in the Jupiter system. This is Commander Morrison at Olympus Station. In 12 hours, we'll find out what humans are really made of. Stay strong. Stay ready. And remember, we're not fighting to surrender. We're fighting to win. The war was about to begin. Captain Alex Turner watched his scanner screen from the bridge of the USS Liberty. His ship patrolled the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. For 2 days, space had been quiet. Too quiet. Captain, his communications officer called. Long range. Sensors are picking up something big at the edge of the system. Alex moved to the sensor station. Lines of data scrolled across the screen. Energy readings unlike anything human sensors had detected before. Massive objects moving faster than any known ship. How many contacts? Computer estimates 347 ships, sir. Various sizes. The largest ones are bigger than our space stations. Alex felt his mouth go dry. Earth's intelligence had guessed the alien fleet would be large, but seeing the actual numbers was different. Frightening. Send a priority message to Admiral Hayes. Include all sensor data. Then set course for Ceres Station. We need to warn the mining colonies. The USS Liberty turned toward the largest asteroid in the belt. Alex had grown up on Ceres, working in the mines with his father. 50,000 people lived there now. Families, children, old folks who had spent their lives digging precious metals from space rocks. As his ship flew toward Ceres, more reports came in from other human vessels. The alien fleet had emerged from hyperspace in a perfect formation. Ship after ship stretching across space in neat rows. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from the alien fleet," his communications officer said. "Put it on screen." The same blue-skinned alien from the first message appeared. This time, he wore what looked like military clothing covered in strange symbols. "I am Supreme Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. "I speak for the Hegemony Fleet. Humans of the Sol System, your time of choice has ended. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to live as our servants. Resist, and we will turn your worlds to dust." The message cut off. Alex stared at the blank screen. The alien's voice had been calm, almost bored, like he was ordering food instead of threatening to destroy billions of people. "Captain," his tactical officer said, "I'm analyzing their fleet formation. Look at this." Alex studied the tactical display. The alien ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, large ships in the center, smaller ones arranged around them in exact positions. No ship moved out of place. "They fight like robots," Alex said. "Every ship in exactly the right spot." "Yes, sir. But look at the weapon signatures we're detecting. Their energy output is much higher than ours." On Ceres Station, Administrator. Carol Stone received Alex's warning with grim determination. She had been expecting this call since the first alien message arrived. "How long until they reach the belt?" she asked. "Best guess is 18 hours, Alex replied. "Carol, you need to start evacuating civilians." "Already started. Transport ships are loading families now." "But Alex, we're not abandoning Ceres. Earth, Command sent us new equipment 3 days ago. This station is about to become a fortress." Carol was right. Hidden in cargo containers marked as mining supplies, Earth had delivered military-grade weapons, particle beam cannons disguised as ore, processors, shield generators hidden inside water recycling plants. The asteroid belt's mining stations were turning into armed camps. Meanwhile, on Luna Station, Admiral Ben Hayes watched the alien fleet approach on his command screens. His staff moved between computer terminals, coordinating Earth's defense. President Rodriguez stood beside him, her face set with determination. "How do our numbers look?" the president asked. "Not good on paper," Admiral Hayes replied. "They have nearly 3 ships for every one of ours, but they don't know what our ships can do." Earth's secret shipyards had produced vessels unlike anything in human history. The heavy cruiser HSS Determination carried weapons that could punch through a mile of solid rock. Stealth frigates like the HSS Phantom could turn invisible to most sensors. And the new adaptive shielding could change frequency faster than enemy computers could track. "Admiral," a communications officer called. "Captain Foster reports his stealth squadron is in position near Neptune. They're ready to begin reconnaissance." Captain Ryan Foster commanded 12 ships that officially did not exist. His squadron had spent 2 years perfecting techniques to hide from enemy sensors. Now they would test those skills against alien technology. From his command ship, Foster watched the alien fleet through passive sensors. Up close, the enemy vessels were even more impressive. Some were long and narrow like metal spears. Others were spherical with weapon ports covering their surface. The largest ships stretched for miles. But Foster noticed something important. The aliens flew in rigid formation with precise distances between each ship. When one vessel adjusted course, others moved to maintain exact spacing. It was beautiful in a way, like a dance performed in space. It was also predictable. Navigation. Plot intercept courses for the outer edge of their formation, Foster ordered. We're going to get close and see what these ships are really made of. Back in the asteroid belt, Alex Turner prepared for humanity's first contact with alien weapons. His orders were simple: make contact, gather intelligence, and survive if possible. The USS Liberty waited behind a large asteroid called Pallas. 3 other human ships hid nearby. Patrol vessels with crews who knew they might not survive the next few hours. Contact, his sensor operator announced. 12 alien ships moving toward Ceres Station. Alex watched the enemy vessels approach. They moved in perfect formation, just like the main fleet. No scouts ranging ahead, no ships checking for ambushes. They simply flew forward in neat rows. All ships. This is Turner. Wait for my signal. The alien ships passed within weapons range. Alex studied their hulls through his ship's telescopes. Smooth metal surfaces with no visible seams. Weapon ports that glowed with internal energy. Shields that shimmered like soap bubbles around each vessel. One of the alien ships detected the human vessels hiding in the asteroids. It sent a communication, burst to its companions. The 12-ship formation turned toward the human position with mechanical precision. All ships, engage, Alex ordered. The USS Liberty burst from behind its asteroid, guns blazing. Particle beams and missile salvos struck the nearest alien ship. The vessel's shields flared bright blue, absorbing most of the damage. But some shots got through. The alien return fire was devastating. Energy beams that could melt through ship armor in seconds. Missile weapons that tracked their targets with impossible accuracy. One human patrol ship exploded in the first exchange. But Alex had expected this. Human ships were faster and more agile than the rigid alien formation could handle. The Liberty danced between asteroids, using the massive rocks as shields. Hit and run, fire and move. Never stay in one place long enough for the aliens to target effectively. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, 3 alien ships were badly damaged and retreating. 2 human ships were destroyed, but the survivors had learned valuable information. Their shields work on fixed frequencies, Alex reported to Admiral Hayes. If we can modulate our weapons fast enough, we can punch through. And Admiral, they can't adapt their tactics quickly. When we changed from formation fighting to individual ship combat, they took several minutes to respond. On Jupiter's moon Europa, Commander Jake Morrison watched the battle reports with growing excitement. The aliens were powerful, but they were not invincible. More important, they seemed unable to think creatively during combat. Dr. Lisa Carter had been studying alien communication intercepts for hours. Her computer programs broke down the mathematical structure of their language, looking for patterns. "Jake, I found something interesting," she said. "The aliens use a command structure like a pyramid. Orders go from the top ship down to smaller ships, but if you disrupt the command ship, the others have trouble coordinating." "You mean if we cut off the head, the body stops working?" "Something like that. Look at this battle recording from Captain Turner's fight. When the lead alien ship took damage, the others stopped moving in formation for almost 2 minutes. Jake studied the tactical data. During those 2 minutes of confusion, human ships had destroyed one alien vessel and damaged 2 others. It was a significant advantage. Admiral Hayes called another fleet conference. Ship captains from across the solar system appeared on screens throughout the command center. "The first engagement is complete," Hayes announced. "Captain Turner's group performed magnificently. We now know the enemy can be hurt, and more important, we know how they think." Captain Foster reported from his stealth ships near the alien main fleet. "Admiral, they're maintaining strict formation even after the asteroid belt engagement. No change in their approach vector or speed." "Excellent. That means they haven't learned from their losses yet. Captain Turner, how long before they reach Mars?" "6 hours, sir." "Perfect. All ships, prepare for Operation Red Sand. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they threaten human worlds." As the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they passed the orbit of Mars. The red planet looked peaceful from space. A few orbital stations, some mining facilities on the moons, light defenses that posed no threat to a superior alien fleet. Supreme Admiral Vextar studied the human worlds through his ship's scanners. Primitive infrastructure, simple defensive positions. This would be easier than subjugating the Terran colonies near Proxima Centauri 50 years ago.